the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
All right, thank you for joining us on DC News Now. I'm Shanika Grimshaw. So we're going to get to your top stories in just a bit. But first, we want to head over to the Weather Center with meteorologist Jackie Layer. It's set to be a gorgeous day today.
Yeah, that's right, Shanika. I mean, we'll see high temperatures back in those lower 80s again today for much of the region. That's several degrees above normal for this time of the year, but we'll be under a mix of sun and clouds. We did have some rain showers earlier this morning. Those may have woken you up around 2:30 to 3:30 in the morning. But yeah, those have since faded away. And we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures climbing lower 80s by 4 p.m. Sunset this evening is at 8 p.m. Yeah, that's our first 8 p.m. sunset of the year here in the district. Yeah, you have to go back to August 16th of last year. Last time we've seen an 8 p.m. sunset. So it's been quite some time since we've seen that. Now, timing out the rest of your day today with Futurecast. If anything, maybe that spot sprinkle across southern Maryland later this afternoon. Aside from that, we are in the clear. We're tracking those dry conditions and temperatures varying in the upper 70s to lower 80s. We'll be a little bit cooler for some of our coastal areas as that wind does shift to mainly out of the east at times later on today. But aside from that, overall, looking like a nice warm day ahead. But tomorrow we're tracking some isolated thunderstorms into the afternoon. So I'll have more details on that coming up.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. We're turning now to some breaking news. We've been following. A man is dead and 2 others are hurt, including a teenager, after a shooting in Northwest D.C. It happened near the intersection of Georgia and New Hampshire Avenues. This here was the scene from last night. You can see that on your screen there. Police say they got a call about a shooting at around 9 o'clock. A man and a teenage boy were found shot at the scene. The man was pronounced dead and the teen was taken to the hospital. Another man took himself to the hospital as well. If you have any information surrounding this incident, you are asked to call police. And not everyone is happy about the Commanders potentially moving back to the district. Last night, a forum was held at the Hill Center in Southeast. That's just about a mile and a half away from RFK Stadium. At the forum, many saying they don't like that $1 billion worth of taxpayer money will go towards the funding that stadium. Now, they would rather have the community invest in something like housing, transit, or development for Ward 7.
I was frustrated as a voter and as a resident who lives right by the stadium that it didn't feel like I had an opportunity to really understand or have been put into the process.
Putting a large structure that's going to cost over $1 billion that is going to sit dark more than 90% of the year, I would rather us build housing. I'd rather us build businesses, build parks, build grocery stores, and that's what we can do, and we've done it in other neighborhoods in our city.
The RFK deal still needs to be approved by the D.C. Council. Charles Allen, who you just heard from, says he'll vote no along with Councilwoman Breon Nadeau. And over in Maryland, people are worried about the economic loss from the team moving. Landover has been home to the Burgundy and Gold for over 25 years. One bartender tells us he has some concerns, but ultimately believes they'll be okay.
We're going to take a hit, but at the same time, when the game's over, they'll be back here. They're going to come back because it's like their regular routine where it used to go. I'm pretty sure there'll be spots downtown, but they're going to resort back to here too, I believe. But will business decline a little? Maybe a little.
And right now, Governor Moore is working to figure out what to do with Northwest Stadium if the Commanders leave. He says he's considering developing both housing and entertainment options. And you can find the latest on the Commanders' return to D.C. anytime on our website at dcnewsnow.com. And new developments in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. This evening is the deadline of a stay issued by a judge for the White House to begin complying with the Supreme Court's order to facilitate Garcia's return. So the Trump administration asking a federal judge for a pause so it can stop the judge required updates on the efforts it's made to return him. Now, this comes as Trump continues to defy that order from SCOTUS. Last night in an interview with ABC News, Trump saying he could call the president of El Salvador to begin that process, but he won't. And then later in that interview, Trump flipping, saying he doesn't have the power to return Abrego Garcia at all. And as we approach that deadline, we're learning from Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. He wrote a letter to President Trump detailing his meeting earlier this month with El Salvador's vice president. He says, in part, our decisions showed that your administration is doing nothing to comply with and implement the Supreme Court's order to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S., and revealed that the government of El Salvador is holding him solely at the request of your administration, and specifically because you're paying them to imprison him. President Trump has not responded publicly to that letter, and you can read Senator Van Hollen's full letter on our website. That's at dcnewsnow.com. Happening today, hundreds of people protesting against President Trump's first 100 days in office. During his first 100 days, he signed almost 150 executive orders. Ralliers saying that the Trump administration has been ignoring the rule of law and wrongfully dismantling democratic institutions. The rally is being held at Samuel Gompers Memorial Park, and it started at 7:30 this morning. And on Capitol Hill, some Democratic lawmakers are now introducing the Medicare for All Act to provide universal health care with no premiums or co-pays. The act will also expand Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing. As national correspondent Basil John reports, some Republicans say this cannot work.
Can't take it no more. More than 100 healthcare professionals chanted on Capitol Hill as they joined Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders in introducing his Medicare for All Act.
Our legislation would provide comprehensive care to all Americans, rich, poor, young or old, with zero out-of-pocket expense.
Sanders' bill seeks to deliver nationwide, all-inclusive health coverage without premiums, copays, or deductibles. It also extends coverage to dental, vision, and hearing services.
It would be less expensive because it would eliminate an enormous amount of the bureaucracy, profiteering, administrative costs, and misplaced priorities inherent in our current for-profit system.
Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell says the U.S. is falling behind other countries as some of her constituents are struggling to survive.
Too many are having to choose whether they can afford their medicine or eat. It's flat out wrong.
Many healthcare workers at the rally tell me they've seen patients struggle firsthand while healthcare companies make billions.
Instead of putting the money back into a system so that everyone can receive the care that they need and deserve.
But Republican Congressman Rich McCormick argued against this idea, saying the government is not efficient enough and it will lead to mandatory spending.
Do we really want to expand Medicare for everybody where there's no competition, where everybody sets in and doctors stop working hard because they can't make a living?
However, Sanders believes this is an issue that should get bipartisan support. Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
All right, we're on the move as Metro leaders meet to talk about public safety across the region's bus and rail system. Transit officials praised dropping crime numbers and renewed partnerships between local agencies with helping to keep the Metro system safe. Yesterday's meeting comes weeks after the Metro's CEO, Randy Clark, met with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. It also comes after Metro Transit Police Chief met with President Trump's anti-crime task force. Clark says a big part of that drop is because of increased fare enforcement.
Had hundreds of people do fare evasion that have been arrested for outstanding warrants or had weapons. So all of those things are keeping people off the system that commit other crimes.
Clark said the system is looking into dedicated civilian fare enforcement efforts where non-officers will engage with people trying to tailgate paying customers or jump gates. He says those conversations are still in the early stages. All right, it's about that time to turn things over to meteorologist Jackie Layer with a check on what's it going to feel like today. I know, Jackie, I was woken up to a large sound. It was just really scary. It was just a lot of rain coming down.
Yeah, we did have that earlier this morning, but that since has moved its way out. We're going to be tracking those dry conditions for much of the day today under a mix of sun and clouds, with those temperatures warming back up into those upper 70s to lower 80s through the afternoon hours. Our first 8 p.m. sunset of the year, that is this evening, and temperatures will be holding into those lower 70s under some partly cloudy skies as well. The last time we had an 8 p.m. sunset, we had to go back to August 16th of last year. So it's been well over 250 days since we've seen an 8 p.m. sunset or later. So yes, those days, or at least those sunsets, are getting getting later and later. And so we'll see that for the day today. Highs today, though, topping out upper 70s to low to mid 80s across much of the area for your Wednesday. We did have that cold front push through earlier this morning, and that did spark some of those showers and some heavier downpours, even a few rumbles of thunder, too. So those may have woken you up between 2:30 and 3:30. Yeah, I know, not ideal timing for those thunderstorms to happen. But later on this afternoon, we're tracking those dry conditions, mix of sun and clouds. We do notice a bit of a shift in the wind direction for some of our coastal areas later on this afternoon. So I'll keep temperatures a touch cooler for the Annapolis area. But farther inland, we'll see those temperatures varying those upper 70s to lower 80s. Later on this evening, still partly cloudy, lows dropping back down, likely into those upper 50s to low to mid 60s overnight tonight. So as a view of those low temperatures overnight, much of the area will drop back into those 50s overnight. Tomorrow, we'll see those highs upper 70s to lower 80s again. So similar to those high temperatures for the day today. But tomorrow, the difference is we do have a warm front drifting in into the afternoon. That will spark up some isolated thunderstorms. So you do want to stay weather aware tomorrow afternoon for that threat of a few of those storms. Now, we will see dry times between that threat for some thunderstorms into the afternoon. So we're not looking at a washout. Friday, also not a washout either, but we do have some shower and storm chances too ahead of this cold front that'll be diving in as we look towards your Friday afternoon and evening. So stay weather aware for that. Then we have the stationary front Saturday. More wet weather on the way. Looks like Saturday into the afternoon hours, we're looking at some scattered showers and storms. Now the system will remain close by into the second half of the weekend. However, it's still looking dry out there. High pressure back with us, at least just out towards the west as we get towards Sunday. So Sunday for now, still looking dry, still looking sun-filled. We'll continue to monitor as we get closer. But Saturday looking a bit more on the wetter side with some scattered thunderstorms. Temperatures will be warmer Saturday. Highs back in those upper 70s, lower 70s on Sunday. Here's the rest of that 7-day forecast. 70s to start off that next work week as well. But we round out this week with high temperatures into those mid-upper 80s Friday. Friday likely the warmest day this week.
All right, Jackie, thank you. Now in the district, local leaders are encouraging businesses to give a second chance to formerly incarcerated people. Officials say 1 in 7 D.C. residents are returning citizens who've served jail time. Now, Talent Beyond Barriers brought dozens of employers and policymakers together to promote second chance hiring. The event included panels, coaching for businesses, conversations with city leaders, and a networking reception with employers and advocates.
Get the opportunity now to be a part of the community, right? We get the opportunity now to know what it's like to be a responsible adult. And so I feel like that chance is not only our second chance, it's kind of like our first chance.
One way to encourage hiring is a proposed bill by Councilmember Brooke Pinto. It would give a $5,000 tax credit to private employers for every formerly incarcerated person they hire. And in Maryland, Prince George's County is celebrating National Apprenticeship Day, and the county is holding multiple events today. There are 2 sessions at the Building Trade Center in Lanham. The first session is at 10 a.m. It's for PGCPS students only, and those students will get a personal escort to the event to get more hands-on access in exploring careers. The second session is open to the entire public. It begins at 2 p.m. And looking ahead, the Washington Regional Alcohol Authority program is offering sober ride discounts for Cinco de Mayo. Now, you can get up to $15 off of a one-time ride using Lyft. You must be 21 or older, and the discount is valid for new and current Lyft riders. It would be available Monday, May 5th from 4 p.m. to the next day at 4 a.m. The code will be released to the public, and that's at 3 p.m. Now that's all the time we have for you this morning on DC News Now. Be sure to stick around for more news and weather coming up on the news at noon.